Welcome to a CDCon Lightning Talk. DevOps at Scale, the challenge of a cloud-native architecture, a lightning talk by DeployHub. First, let's meet me, Tracy Ragan. I am the CEO of DeployHub. I am on the board of the CD Foundation. I'm a DevOps Institute ambassador, and I love to ride big horses. I live in a small town in New Mexico, and yes, I have a black belt. So it is time to go fast. We have talked about 10-minute builds, agile practices, sprints, Scrum, and continuous development, but these discussions have always been around a monolithic approach with a CI/CD pipeline that has been built on static scripts. For every single workflow, we generally have lots of scripts that keep it together. A cloud-native architecture with Kubernetes and microservices is going to challenge us in that area. And it's time that we reimagine how we architect and continuously deliver software. Automation is key. Static processes and scripts are going to be in the way. So in order to get to this next level, we really have to reimagine our approach to a continuous delivery pipeline, one that can meet the requirements of what I like to call DevOps at scale, and automation will be key. Microservices will shift how we think about the continuous delivery pipeline. And I'm talking about, when I talk about continuous delivery, a process that moves updates through the pipeline from change request to back all the way around to delivering updates to our end users. So let's just think about what's core to a cloud-native architecture and microservices. While we can create a container and put our monolithic in the container and then push that out to a Kubernetes cluster, and that's a great way to start. The way we really start building business agility and get fast about pushing new changes out to our clusters is through a microservice architecture. But that changes the way we develop software. First of all, our builds are going to be small. We're not going to have a big compile and link step and build a big jar file or a binary. Instead, we're going to create a Docker image, register it, and it's ready to go. And that Docker image is going to have smaller functions in it. It's not going to have a monolithic. With microservices, deployments are truly continuous. Regardless if you're pushing it through your CD pipeline, you may be trying to manage them manually today, your production deployments in particular, but that's going to be a challenge with microservices. They're going to need to be updated on a frequent basis. You can continue to try to do that manually at the production level, but what we really have to get to is a point where the continuous delivery pipeline is going to push things across the pipeline from dev through production, and we have repeatability, and we have knowledge about what we're doing and what we're changing. Core to the concept of a microservice, because we don't have a big build, is we lose the application version, and that kind of changes the way we see things. And a lot of workflows are going to be around because every microservice is going to have its own workflow, and workflows should really be templated, and scripts must be minimized. So if we think about what a continuous delivery pipeline looks like in a microservice architecture, is we have these little pieces being pushed across the pipeline on an individual basis, deployed independently out to many different clusters. And because your build doesn't create an application in the same way as it did in monolithic, there was a lot less to track in monolithic, so now we're tracking a lot of little pieces. And what occurs there is that you may have an application that's running and suddenly it starts acting differently, but you didn't release anything. But one of your microservices that you're relying on and consuming actually did get changed. You know, only 15% of companies report this massive success with microservices. We need that to change. So what's lost in microservices that is different from monolithic? Again, the application version schema. That's always been a North Star for us, and it does impact things like testing, bug tracking, value stream management. We used to have this bill of material report that we trusted to show us exactly what was in our build, and that determined and explained to us how our application was configured, how it was, what libraries were linked, what source code we use. That goes away. A difference report's gone. what was new? What changed between two bomb reports? Something simple. We don't have that anymore. And impact analysis. When should I do a release? If I'm a microservice developer, who am I going to impact when this microservice goes out? Is it one application or is it 10? So what we have to do in order to go fast in a microservice environment is really to have the knowledge of what we're changing. And part of that is putting a logical version of the application back into a microservice architecture so going fast isn't so risky. Remember, these microservices are going to get pushed out on a high frequency basis. Regardless of how much people want to slow that down, they're going to get pushed out. That is the core of microservices, and that's why microservices create the business agility. We need to figure out a way to support them and to release them fast without the risk of creating an incident report that we had no idea would potentially be created because we impacted something we weren't aware of. So that is what DeployHub is. DeployHub is a microservice management platform for site reliability engineers, DevOps engineers, and release teams. It's a self-service SaaS solution that allows you to share microservices in what's called a domain-driven design. Don't have time to talk about that, but it's important. You should read about it. It restores that logical application version and maps microservice dependencies. It also does the deployment and it tracks where these microservices are in clusters and relates back the application version running on each of those clusters. Knowledge is power. Knowing what you're changing is critical. If you know what you're changing, you can push it out. If you don't know what you're changing, you lack confidence in doing so. You can't achieve DevOps at scale without some clear visibility about what you're pushing out. DeployHub produces bill of material reports or maps. It shows for each application version what microservices that application version is consuming and the versions of those microservices. And for every version of a microservice, it shows exactly the applications that it's impacting. And for every time a microservice is deployed out to a cluster, it shows the difference report between the last time that application was running and now with a new microservice out there, which microservice created the new application version. So enhancing that ecosystem to be able to confidently deploy services all day long and really meet DevOps at scale is the goal of DeployHub. And it does that by adding some important configuration management features into your CD pipeline. For example, it establishes that logical application version. It provides the reports that we're used to seeing so we understand what we're deploying. It tracks things based on a git commit, a registry SHA, a tag, a change request. And that's what it uses to create new versions of microservices, which then in turn creates new versions of applications. And then it does something very important. It tracks all those changes across all the clusters. So it creates a central repository and registry of everything that's running across all your clusters. What do you get? Well, first of all, it takes the guesswork out of tracking who's consuming your microservice if you're a microservice developer. And it saves some serious time when it comes to tracking these pieces. And if you're doing it manually, it's going to slow you down and you're not going to achieve DevOps at scale. Microservice sharing is critical. You want to reduce the redundant coding and you don't want lots of microservices that are performing the same function. A domain-driven design will help you solve that problem, and that's part of the DeployHub solution. And DeployHub allows you to confidently deploy microservice across clusters because you have the knowledge to make some serious decisions about impact even before they land in a microservice and start creating incident reports. And I hear people all the time say, part of the problem is we have to wait till we do a deployment and then we get the incident reports. We want to do that the other direction. We want to stop the problems before they happen, and that visibility is important for doing that because the visibility gives site reliability engineers the knowledge of what's happening, and that data is what gives the SREs the data-driven decision-making power to know when a microservice is ready to go out and how risky it is. DeployHub is based on an open source project called Ortelius. Ortelius was the first map maker. He known to be the first person to create a world atlas. We figured it was a appropriate name considering we're creating maps of clusters. We have a growing and very diverse open source community, and we're working hard together to really reimagine how software needs to be delivered for this cloud native environment and to really achieve DevOps at scale. Join us. We would love for you to help us go fast. And I think that bringing knowledge together from people of all different kinds of technical backgrounds to really take this problem on and solve it so we can achieve DevOps at scale is exactly what we need today. So please join us. And the good news is DeployHub has a free version. There are some differences between what we monetize and what we call Pro, but the free version you can have unlimited releases, unlimited users. What we restrict are user groups, things that's going to be more appropriate for an enterprise. But if you're a team and you have full control of your environment, DeployHub team will take you quite a ways. So sign up at deployhub.com and let me know what you think. And here's how you can get a hold of me. And we thank you so much for listening to this lightning talk. And if you want to reach out to me, Tracy at deployhub.com is the easiest way. And here is my calendar. But reach out to me and we can chat more, and you can tell me your experience into microservices. So some of those problems we can add back into that Ortelius roadmap. Thank you.